Fifth Element was the project I was involved in of those three more than any. And when that wrapped, I went over to the special effects crew on Dante's and worked on the miniature effects for that. And when that wrapped, then went and did some final shots on Titanic. And so that we had like an engine room sequence where it floods, had a dining room sequence where it gets flooded. It was just a few small last minute things. And I was involved early on, before we started shooting Fifth Element. I was involved in some of the test shots with Jim Cameron, and we had a 25-foot mock-up of the Titanic that, we built it in 9 days, but it looked beautiful. It was the right shape. It was on wheels. It would split in half, and it was something for Jim Cameron to do some test shooting with a little lipstick camera, and put a little lipstick cam onto a motion control rig, and ran that around, and used that to come up with reference footage for a storyboard artist. And we did other shots with another piece that broke in half. It was kind of hinged, and it would hinge open, so we played with that, and he did shots, just basically coming up with shots and turning that over to his guys. And so yeah, my part in that was minimal compared to some of the guys that were up at the Hughes Center building the big 45-footer. Yeah, I didn't put a single rivet into that, I'm proud to say.
I really enjoyed the Titanic. That was probably one of the biggest, 44 feet long. The thing was huge. 17 feet tall, 10 feet wide. The people who don't have boats that big. And it was a magnificent model. I was most definitely stretched to the limits of my capability, but I was put in a position that I had to lead. And I was given 26 people, only 5 I knew. And the rest of them were newbies. And so you don't know what they can do. And that's scary because you have no time to find out. And I was basically came in to be the lead painter for the show. And when I showed up, Gene Rizzardi, who called me in, said, "I'm not quite ready for paint." I'm looking at this boat going, "No, you really aren't. What do you want me to do?" And he said, "I need you to take over the mold department because the molds suck. They're terrible." And I looked at the molds and went, "These are awful." He says, "Yeah, it's taking an hour to clean parts." So he gave me 6 people I never met before. And I said, "Everybody, here we're going to make molds. And I don't know what you've been told, but considering what I'm seeing here, just forget everything you were told and let's try it my way and see what happens. But if you got a better idea, I want to hear it. But if I don't like it, we're doing it my way." And within a week, George Stevens, who was the co-shop foreman with Gene, came over and says, "Thank God you fixed this. We're getting parts that are perfect, and we're getting lots of them." And I had a crew of 2 people just casting with pressure pots and showed them the tricks, and they were wonderful. Lori Parkowski, who was a sculptor, and she never did molds, but she had a talent. She was a sculptor, and a very good one. And she picked it up like that. I couldn't correct her molds. When the rivets went on, and there were some over 100,000 rivets that were placed one at a time. If you've talked to Gene Rizzardi, he'll tell you that nightmare. The problem is that, you had the little patterns, you drill holes and then actually put the pinheads in. So when I had to paint this yellow 1-inch stripe on a black hull, the length of 44 feet, and then around again, I needed kind of a straight line, and there was a zone that was flat between the rivets that I could mask. You never saw the Godzilla, though. Godzilla went on the wreck, and R2 went in the bridge. He's right there.
Digital Domain was being very aggressive at the time because they were just at the same time working on Dante's Peak and Titanic. So their digital pipeline was full all the time, and it was a constant process of, well, let's purge what we can so we can bring in more things. And Fifth Element had the priority for a while, and then Digital Domain was trying to nudge for priority as Titanic was coming through. But that was Jim Cameron's project, and nobody's getting in the way of Titanic.
Remember when Cameron was doing this, he says, "Well, I need 100 million," and he comes back, "Well, I need another 50 million." He ended up at 200 million, and of course, there were executives that were having their heads cut off and rolling down the halls at this point, and jumping out the windows, because for the production, it was like, if this doesn't make it, we're dead. You're taking all of our money, you know. If this isn't a blockbuster, we're dead. And they were panicking. But he kept pulling. But there's a point when there was no money, and they were looking to get rid of people. So seeing the light there and in the coming distance, I went, "Hey, boss!" I called David Jones. "I think they're going to be laying people off. Can you use me?" I mean, it was that fast. Like, "Yes, please, now come. How soon can you be here?" Then they sent me over to Fifth Element to fix some painting things that they needed done, and then I went over, and that's when I stepped into the second half of Air Force One with all these cool military jets, huge things that I got to paint. And, I mean, it was a real joy. And right behind that, we got Starship Troopers, cool spaceship models, and I mean, it was a glorious time.
Maybe it was the clout of having Stan Winston and Jim Cameron as co-owners. I don't know, but a lot of shows happened all at once, and then it got really quiet after that, and became more commercials, and they were getting little bits and pieces, and then eventually the model shop disappeared, faded out, and as did most of them. There were a lot of them just went quiet then.
But it was a neat time, and I think you'll find everyone you interview that space of year there that was cool. We made neat stuff. We made cool stuff. We made friends. We got new stories. There's a comradeship that happened.